Hi guys, my name is Jasmine and welcome back to my channel. Today I will be doing the ultimate guide, detailed step-by-step tutorial on how to do a bright under eye. Over the past year or so on social media, the bright under eye has definitely become very trendy and something that a lot of people have integrated into their makeup routines, including myself. So if you've been having some trouble with it or haven't found a tutorial that's detailed enough for you, here I am to deliver it. So if you would like to see how to achieve a bright under eye, please keep on watching. Okay, so we're a little further back today. Let me know how you guys like it. Usually I like for you to be all up in my face, but I thought I would back it up a little bit today. So let me know what you think. I'm prepped and primed and ready to go. And the very first thing that I would say is key is using a foundation that is slightly darker than you. So I have the L'Oreal Infallible Fresh Wear foundation that I'm going to use today, and I'm using the shade 530 Deep Amber. And since I normally like to do a bright under eye, this is the shade that I would go for, not something that's too exact to my skin tone, just slightly darker, maybe 1 or 2 shades darker, because the concealer will brighten up your face. And if you have your foundation the exact same shade as your face, then your face is going to look even lighter, which we don't want. So you want to go a little bit darker with your foundation. This is one of my favorite drugstore foundations. I don't have a lot that I use or a lot that I like most of the time because I'm not able to find a shade for me, but this one I think is an amazing shade for when I want to do a bright under eye and just any makeup look in general. It is amazing. The very first concealer that I'm going to use is one that is pretty close to my skin tone, maybe one or 2 shades lighter than me, but when I blend it out it looks pretty close to my skin tone. And the one that I'm going to be using today is the Kosas concealer, and this is in the shade 8.7 I believe. I absolutely love this concealer. I'm actually kind of starting to run out of it. It's so good. It's literally so good. So I placed that concealer underneath my eyes and then everywhere else where I normally highlight. Now I'm going to blend this concealer out. I don't usually let it sit for too long. This is normally just to kind of neutralize under my eyes and obviously everywhere else where I highlight. And to blend this out, I'm going to use the Sigma F03 brush. This is their high cheekbone highlighter brush, and I don't like to use this type of brush for my highlight. I personally think it's a little bit too big, but it works really well underneath my eyes. I also really love the e.l.f. Flawless Concealer Brush. I've been using this one for the longest time and it is amazing. I tend to reach for brushes rather than a beauty blender so that you have the most flawless and full coverage as possible. You can definitely still use a beauty blender to do this, but I personally think that brushes work the best. Now I'm starting from the inner corner of my eye and I'm just going to bring it out. I don't personally think you need to place a bunch of concealer here and then here. I didn't understand that placement. I tried it and it wasn't the best for me. That's why I went back to my original placement, because I just think you can literally just blend it out. And I like to blend upwards when I get towards the corner of my eye so that it has a lifting effect. So now I'm going to do the same on the other side. I'm going to blend the inner corner of my eye and then blend it out. Now I'm going to go in with my second concealer. This one is going to be about 2 to 3 shades lighter than the first one that you used. Here they are next to each other. As you can see, the Too Faced concealer is lighter than the Kosas concealer by about 2 shades, I would say, and that is the one that we're going to use to highlight first. So I like to focus this on the very inner corner of my eye. And then also, this is up to personal preference. If you want to use it to highlight any other point of your face, you definitely can, because I like a pretty defined and present nose contour. I'm going to use this along the bridge of my nose, but I'm going to put a very small amount since I'm going to blend this down my nose. And then I also like my forehead to look pretty highlighted, so I'm going to highlight my forehead as well. Sometimes I put it above my lip, but today I'm not feeling like it. So now we're going to let this sit for a little bit, and in the meantime I'm going to apply my contour. Now I finished my contour and I've also blended out the concealer on my nose and on my forehead, and now I'm going to blend out my under eye. This part is very important, so if you weren't paying attention before, which I'm sure you were, Pay attention now. To blend out this concealer, I'm going to be using the e.l.f. Flawless Concealer Brush, but be sure to keep the original brush that you had handy. To blend out my under eye, to blend out the highlighted part, I'm going to keep it very concentrated on the inner corner of my eye. We're not blending this the same way that we did with the other concealer. I'm just keeping this very concentrated about there. That's as far as I'm bringing it down, and I'm just tapping to blend it out. We're not dragging because we don't want to drag it out too far. I'm just tapping like so. And you may be thinking, Jasmine, this isn't blended out. That's where the other brush comes in. You're going to use your other brush that you used to do the first concealer to blend out the edges of this concealer. This makes it so that the highlight doesn't go all the way out, but it's still blended and has kind of like an ombre effect, so that the brightness is concentrated on the inner part of your eye. And now also for me, when I'm blending, I can tend to get some concealer along the side of my nose that's not blended. You can also use this same brush to do that, to blend that out again. Now, this is a perfectly bright under eye. You can definitely stop here, but I'm gonna make it even brighter. If you don't want to do this, you definitely do not have to each his own. I know some people don't like it to be too bright, but I love a really, really bright under eye, so I'm gonna add a third concealer. This is the Maybelline Superstay concealer, and this is in the shade 05. It looks like this. Now this is a white concealer, but please do not be frightened. Our under eye is gonna look just fine using this concealer. Again, this is if you want it to be very dramatic, very, very bright. And this concealer is one that is not too high coverage, so it'll be easy to blend out. I'm gonna just apply this on the inner corner of my eye again, the same way that we did with the first concealer shade, but it's gonna be even more concentrated on the inner portion of the eye. And now I'm gonna blend it out. I'm not gonna let it sit for too long. And to blend it out, I'm gonna be using my Rare Beauty concealer brush, and I'm just gonna lightly tap, and I'm not gonna bring it farther than this. Like, you definitely do not want to drag the white concealer out too much. And I'm just gonna gently tap and blend. So as you can see now, it's a little bit brighter. And as you're experiencing the same thing, it's not gonna be fully blended. So I'm gonna go back with the second brush that I used, the e.l.f. Flawless Concealer brush, and I'm gonna use this to blend out the edges. And then lastly, I'm gonna go in with the first brush that I used and blend that out too. This way you're completely blended out, no harsh lines, nothing unblended. So now we have 3 different concealer brushes that we used. Let me put them in this order actually. This is the first one I used, this is the second one, and this is the third one. We're gonna use the Rare Beauty concealer brush to lightly tap in that white concealer. And you're not gonna drag this too far out at all. I'm really not even dragging it out. I love the shape of this brush because I think it helps to keep it concentrated in one area. I'm just tapping it out. And now, because this is unblended, we're gonna use the last concealer brush, the one that we used before this one, the second one, the e.l.f. Flawless Concealer brush, and lightly blend out the edges. And then I'm gonna go in with the very first brush that we used and blend out the very edges to make sure everything is completely blended out with no harsh lines. Now, if you used all 3 concealers, this is how you should be looking. And if you don't want it to be this bright, do not add the white concealer. Do not add it, because this is how bright you'll get. I love a bright under eye. I love how bright this is, so this is how bright I like to go usually. Sometimes, some days, I'm feeling a little bit less bright, but at minimum, honestly, I'll use the first 2. Now, to set, we're gonna do the exact same thing setting, whether you use the white concealer or not, so you can still follow the same steps from here. The loose powder that I'm going to be using today is my favorite setting powder, and that is the Huda Beauty Easy Bake Loose Baking and Setting Powder, and today I'm using the shade Blondie. The pressed powder that I'm going to be using today is from NYX, and this is NYX, not NYX. It's from NYX, and it is the Can't Stop Won't Stop Mattifying Powder, and today I'm using the shade Light. Now before we set, at least for me, and I'm sure for a lot of other people where under your eye creases, you're going to look into your mirror. I usually like to get a handheld mirror and hold it up, and you can see where your eyes have creased. I'm just going to use the third brush to tap those creases until they go away. I'm not adding any more concealer. I'm not going to blend too much. I'm not going to use too heavy of a hand. I'm just going to use that brush to blend out any creases. And now, as you said, you're going to want to keep your eyes up like this so that they don't crease again. I'm probably going to have to blend mine again, but I just wanted to demonstrate for you. Now you're going to get whatever type of tool that you like to use to set under your eyes. I like to use a brush right now. I know some people like to use a powder puff. I need to try that out to see if I like it. And I know some other people like to use a sponge, but today I'm going to be using a brush. So I'm going to get a good amount of setting powder on my brush, and after blending out the creases underneath my eyes, I'm going to use the brush to lightly set underneath my eyes. So you're still going to continue to look up so that you're going to aim for where your eye usually creases, and then just set everywhere else around there. This is why I like to use a brush, and I think why other people like a powder puff as well, because it really can target your eye creases. So I like to put the powder directly where my eye would crease and then blend it out. Now if you have dry skin or dry under eyes, stop here. You do not need to bake or anything, but I have oily skin and I love to bake, so that's what I'm going to do. Now to bake my under eye, I'm going to use a sponge. This sponge is completely dry. I got it from Morphe, and I'm going to get the same setting powder on my sponge, and I'm just going to bake basically where we put the white concealer. I'm just going to place it in that area, the heaviest, and then I'm going to take a small amount and also bake where my eye would crease. Now I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. I'm going to bake the inner part of my eye where I placed the white concealer, there about. Even the second concealer, I would say you put that much, and then I'm going to lightly bake where my eye would crease. I'm also somebody that likes to bake the sides and bridge of my nose, so I'm going to bake there as well. This is not necessary for the bright under eye, it's just something that I like to do personally. Now while baking, I did a few more steps of my makeup routine just to pass the time. I did my bronzer and blush, and then I also did my brows, and now we're ready to wipe off the bake. Now is the time where I would reach for my pressed powder. I'm going to use the same brush that I used to apply the loose powder in the first place, and I'm going to get my brush in here, and I'm going to use this to press in the baking powder. I'm not somebody that likes to wipe my powder away because I feel like that can make some of the pigment go away. I will press it in. You see how smooth it is? I'm obsessed. And I'm going to do the same thing with the other side. I'm going to dip into my pressed powder, and I'm going to press it in to the loose powder. And you can blend it out to the outer corner of your eye. This is just so satisfying to me. And then you can wipe a little bit. Just don't, you know, act as if you're wiping it off of your face. Like so. So smooth. And then if you baked the bridge of your nose like I did, I still use the same brush, and I just wipe like this. You can wipe on your nose. And that is it for your under eye. It is nice and beautiful and bright and smooth. I'm just obsessed with it. I don't think I'll ever get rid of this in my makeup routine. I don't know if I'll ever outgrow it because it is just so beautiful and takes your makeup to the next level. Now I'm gonna finish the rest of my face and then come back. And here is my final look with the beautiful bright under eye. If you would like to see the other steps that I took to achieve this look, I do have my updated summer makeup tutorial up on my channel already, so I will link that up here and also down below in the description. I hope this video was helpful for anyone trying to achieve a bright under eye, and please let me know if you try it out, and also you can send any pictures to me on my social media, which is linked down below, if you try this technique. Make sure to also subscribe to my channel and turn on the post notification bell so you don't miss another video from me. Leave me a like and a comment down below as well, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye!